At first blush, it would seem that talking about a flow of a river in the western United States would be a peculiar subject to discuss on a mobility and technology program. But hold on a minute. The availability of water can impact where you live, what you can eat, and where you can work. The Colorado River, as reported here some months ago, impacts 40 million people in parts of 7 western states as well as northern Mexico. Colorado also has an outsized impact on the availability and irrigation of much of the nation's fresh fruits and vegetables grown in Arizona, California, and even northern Mexico. Problem is, a chronic drought, a first ever level 1 water emergency in the lower basin, and a melting snowpack that evaporated long before it found its way to the river is shaping up to be nasty. The problems now being felt in parts of Arizona is the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. Arizona, now I'm reading from, that liberal bastion of newsprint, the Wall Street Journal.
Nope.
You're not loving it, but you know what? It makes it all the more important. Arizona is the first state to experience deep cutbacks caused by a drought-fueled decline on the Colorado River. Farmers in the fast-growing state are losing most of the water they receive from the Colorado this year. And guess what? Next year, some of the main counties that do the growing won't get any water from the Colorado next year. Just so you know, if shrinking water flows in the river don't reverse, cities in Arizona and other states could be affected next, officials say. Let me bring your mind back. We reported here that the Federal Bureau of Land Reclamation, who controls water rights in the western United States, declared a level 1 water emergency in the lower basin of the Colorado River. What that meant at the time is those people who received water from the lower basin had to cut water use by 5%. They weren't getting any more, and they had to cut what they got by 5%. For context, it is the first time ever that they declared a water emergency, and that is the first time in 100 years since they made these agreements. Why Arizona, you ask? Arizona was the last one in on these agreements. They were a junior partner, so they are taking the hit first. What will impact us, all of us, is as this gets worse, and it already has, because in order to meet the current demand in the lower basin, they drained the reservoirs that fed the upper basin of the Colorado and shipped that water down to the lower basin. There's no reserves. And I track this in following various newspapers and other outlets in Colorado and what they call the Front Range. And they climatologists talked about snowpack. And there was a moment in January where they thought they may have beat this thing, where they thought they got above average snowpack, and that as it melted, they were hoping it would make it into the tributaries that make up the Colorado River and then the reservoirs that feed the Colorado in the upper basin. As they say, that was then, this is now. Didn't happen. The level of Nevada's Lake Mead, and this is the river's largest reservoir, was projected to fall below 1,075 feet. As of last month, the reservoir stood at 1,057 feet. In 2000, it was 200 feet higher, 1,214 feet. Lake Mead is considered full at 1,229 feet. If it drops much more, it will trigger other emergencies. If it falls below 1,050 feet, remember, it right now is just a little less than 1,075 feet. If it falls below 1,050 feet, it will trigger a Tier 2 shortage, in which Arizona's overall cutback will increase to 21% from 18%, and cities will be significantly affected. When the first emergency came down last year, Arizona officials promised the cities, namely Phoenix and I believe, I'm not sure if it was Tucson or Flagstaff, but they promised the big cities in Arizona, you will not feel the effect of this first cut. Farmers in central Arizona took all the brunt. Your winter fruits and vegetables come from northern Mexico, Arizona, and some parts of Texas. Those that are actually still grown here. There are others that come from South America. With this water cut, it's going to actually mess with the cities. That's going to be major. Roughly, to give you an idea, that cut, the first cut of 512,000 acre feet, which was 18%, this is tier 1, is about a quarter of what metropolitan Phoenix uses a year. Now, the cuts being implemented this year, primarily in Arizona's agriculture industry, annually generates estimated $23 billion in economic impact and is a large producer of cotton, lettuce, and cattle. Pinal County, an area south of Phoenix that draws most from the Colorado River in the state, is losing 75% of that water this year and all of it next year. What are they going to do? The property is now worthless because they can't irrigate it. They can't grow stuff, which means the cattle that they're contracted to raise, the crops that they are expecting to be used, won't get grown. That will drive prices up and cause scarcities and start a bunch of tiers. But that's not all. This is what you need to know. A tier 3 shortage. If Lake Mead falls below 1,025 feet, remember it's just below 1,075 feet now, will trigger more cuts in those states, and a 7% cut would be imposed in California, where farmers have already lost water from a system tied to the state's northern mountains. That's the Inland Empire, where a lot of the crops, when it says grown in California, comes from there. Irrigated by what? Colorado River water. The fruits and vegetables you now enjoy, if you can get them next year, will cost more. The dryness will force people to have to make decisions. And let's not have a dry year where California has wildfires on top of everything else. That is why I'm talking about it as mobility. Because if you can't eat and you can't live and you don't have water, you have to move.